Welcome, everybody. We have a quorum, and it's 3 o'clock. Paula, could you start us off with the roll call, please?
Jorge Charnico.
Here.
Lee Peoples.
Here.
Anthony Black.
Here.
Dylan Bradway. Donna Cervantes. Matt Guillory. Tyler Holmes. Ben Sellers.
Here.
James Barnum.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Everybody should have received the minutes from the August 22nd meeting. Are there any comments in regards to those minutes? If we have no comments, is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve the August 26th, what was the date of that meeting?
August 22nd.
August 22nd meeting. Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Great. We have no cases withdrawn this month and no cases up for continuance with continuance request. We do have 3 on the consent docket. Michael, if you could just give us a brief overview.
The cases that are on the consent docket are projects that have been reviewed by staff for compliance with the applicable development regulations and design guidelines in the various urban design districts and been determined to have been in compliance with all applicable regs and guidelines, and therefore they're placed on the consent docket for your consideration. These all are cases that rise above the level of administrative approval, so they can't be approved by staff, so we brought them to you for your consideration. And again, recommended approval because they are in compliance with the regs and guidelines.
Thank you, Michael. Does anybody in the commission have any questions for Michael? Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on behalf of these?
My name is Steve Mason. If you all want an update on the Yale, Byron and I are here. It's not part of the agenda.
Do we want an update? And we would do that at the end? Yeah, okay. So we'll talk about that later. All right. If we don't have any questions or comments on the consent docket, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the consent docket.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great. Cases for individual consideration. We don't have any this month. Other business, we have an ordinance amendment, and Lisa's going to speak to us about that.
Hello. Yes, last meeting we introduced some ordinance revisions that planning staff has been working on collecting over the last a little while. It includes updates to Automobile Alley, Cottage District, some general cleanup, especially regarding fence regulations and guidelines, and some relocating some existing provisions to other locations where they're more easily found. But at the last meeting, a question came up from the audience about the setbacks, and wasn't it part of the process to change or update the language about setbacks in the Cottage District? So I asked the commission to continue this item to this meeting so that staff could have enough time to check our notes and do some more analysis, and I'm going to present that to you. In your packet was a staff report that listed just our immediate record. Several of you, I'm trying to think who was in there. I know Lee was in the meetings. I don't remember if Ben was, but we had some big stakeholder outreach meetings at the Civic Center, at the library. We had some smaller workshops. And when I check back at our record of what was presented by the planning department and what was the consensus opinion of the groups we worked with, we didn't find any justification for changing the setbacks. But you guys have since received a letter from Sosa Neighbors that describes where they see our discrepancies. So I want to just go over, in this really brief PowerPoint, go over some analysis we did last week based on the lay of the land as it is right now. We can go from there. So the first thing we did as staff was, well, part of the question was, is what is the impact of anything we change or don't change? What is the impact of that? And the greatest impact of that would be on vacant sites. So the sites in blue are what are vacant. You know, people may have plans for them. We haven't seen them. They haven't submitted them. But the sites in blue are what are vacant. Then of those, I'm going to toggle back and forth, of the sites that are vacant, some of these, like I'll use this one here on 7th Street as an example. It's the only undeveloped lot, 2 lots in Cottage, in this block, on the side of the block. Some of these are, like the last vacant lot. And so, and like these 2. So when a proposal comes in and it's evaluated against the setback regulation, the staff believes that that the blocks in yellow, with this yellow overlay, the setback has been established. There's either enough existing fabric to declare, hey, this is the range, or there's not, in which case, if there's no precedent, then it's back to the default setback. So in staff's opinion, the blocks in yellow, the setback has been established. We did identify 2 sites that are large enough, probably, to support a use other than single-family or 2-family residential. And I'll drill down into them in a second. Just the other day, on the filing deadline, we did receive an application for the lot at 8th and Francis. And that developer, so it is in the assessment of what is vacant, these are truly just vacant. Staff did not want to presume any demo of existing structures. So this lot here at 8th and Francis has 2 homes and a old church structure on it. And we just got an application for it. The application would demolish all 3 of those structures and construct a multifamily dwelling. But as part of their design choice, they have chosen to match the setback. They've chosen to design within the range of all the other structures in the block. So even though it hasn't been approved with that information, we would think that the setback of that block, of the north side of that block, has been established. So to drill down into, I'm going to start with site number 1, which is at the corner of 7th and Lee. So on, just for example, so these 3 lots are vacant. They are owned by 3 different property owners. The lots in the yellowish orange, have a project approved on them, and I believe this one has started, but none of them are finished. But so in this block, we do have what's been established as the range of the setback, and all these numbers are from the approved certificate of approval. And so you can see it ranges from 18 feet to 22 feet, 27 feet. Then part of the question on the setbacks, I believe, is, well, what is the impact of, say, a multifamily dwelling, a multifamily unit coming onto this corner and being designed to be at 10 feet, because the question people have been asking is, well, why are we separating out single family and double family for a different setback than any other use? And what I believe this diagram shows is, so if something was set at 10 feet, the differential would be 8 to 12 feet. Having, from an urban form standpoint, having more concentrated massing on the intersection might be desirable. It might kind of buffer the hospital in a fine way. But then again, everything about what would happen to these lots, as with all the other ones, is pretty speculative, and we don't know if it'll be single family. We don't know if people would choose to front on Lee. We don't know, but we think if nothing changed, that the existing setbacks that are in place would not greatly impact this block. So where we think maybe the greatest concern about the conflicting regulations may be on the northwest corner of 7th and Chartel. This block has some of the deepest setbacks of any blocks in the cottage. So the red line is the range of setbacks, and it's all it's 30 to 38 feet, so it's quite deep. There are 4 vacant parcels. This one, you may remember, it had a parking lot, some parking spaces approved in support of this multifamily right here. Those were approved. I believe they weren't ever constructed. And the rest of the block is vacant. So the red line is the setback within the range. The black line is the setback if something were to build out to the 0 to 10 feet. And then I've also mapped a yellow line. The SOSA neighbors have suggested why shouldn't the setback be 20 feet, because in the rest of DTD1 and DTD2, there's a 20-foot setback for single-family and two-family dwellings. And here, I agree, there is, and this is a huge differential. It could be 25 feet difference but again, it's speculative on if these are going to develop individually, and if so, for what. So does this make sense informationally? And then I'll get to maybe some considerations. So the question is, in the ordinance, as it's been presented, staff does not recommend any changes to the setback. Some items to consider that may change that, and I'm finding that my distance eyesight is, I have to really look through my lens today. So some things to consider: the size and availability of sites. I believe there's really not that many vacant sites, and there aren't that many vacant sites that don't have a setback already established. The current regulations were established in 2013. Most residential neighborhoods have a fixed setback. It's 20, it's 25, it's a certain number. It does not have a range. But a range was established for Cottage District to recognize, kind of capture all of the existing structures and homes that were in the district. And these didn't vary greatly, but they did vary, and they varied enough that to establish a range honored everything and kept everything in conformance without establishing just a hard line. So also the assumption at the time all of these regulations were done was that this area would would continue to develop as a single or two-family residential. And I know looking back 5 years later, it's hard to imagine that it would have developed otherwise, but that was the assumption at the time. So I believe that's why only those two uses were singled out. And then, okay, I already mentioned the setbacks. So the downtown development framework, which was presented and adopted by Urban Design Commission, recommends a 10-foot setback for this area. As with the rest of the downtown regulations, to be closer and engaged with the street is the development pattern in downtown. So the downtown development framework and the existing downtown regulations, the regulation is at or within 10 feet. So it's assumed that between any given structures, there could be a 10-foot difference. It's not designed to be a continuous street wall. What else? So I said the DDF was adopted by the UDC. On some sites, I think especially on the one on this one, you can see the right-of-way is really deep, the distance from the curb to the property line, and I think that alters the perception of what the setback actually is and how far back the house actually is. And again, the recommendation through the stakeholder process from last year was to not make any changes. So I've offered more information than specific suggestions. We're asking, so the Planning Commission did agree to set the ordinance for, the Planning Commission Urban Development Committee agreed to set the ordinance for introduction so that it could be, including some of these issues, could be debated at Planning Commission. And we're asking for the committee to either recommend it as is, or if there are any obvious amendments that the commission wants to put forth, we're happy to forward those on to Planning Commission. And there may be people here to speak.
Do we have any questions for Lisa from the commission? Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak to this? And if you could, please state your name and address, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Bill Bleakley. I reside at 607 Northwest 7th Street. We have provided, the Neighborhood Association has provided you with some materials on our analysis of the lay of the land and some suggested change, which is very, very simple, and that is to eliminate the reference to one and two family residences. Why the ordinance picks those out for a more restrictive setback requirement than multifamily or commercial is kind of a mystery. If you agree with us that the general purpose of the cottage district is a less dense residential area than the rest of the city. And there are only about 6 blocks, both sides, involved in some kind of issue within the cottage district. I have not, this is the first time I've seen Lisa's analysis of what is and what isn't. I see some items that I would differ with her on, but I don't want to, I'm not prepared to address that. But what we really need here is to get some consistency within the cottage district, put everybody on the same level playing field, and the predominant use is residential, and the predominant setback requirement is within the existing range if there are 2 or more structures. If there's 1 or 0 structures, then you go back to the minimum or the maximum of the 20 feet, which is the full range. And that is, we're also asking that you bring it down to the 20 feet that is provided for in the DT D1. So it's a very simple change. It levels the playing field. The two examples most likely to be commercially developed if they are sold without restrictions by the owner are on Chartel on one side and Lee on the other. I'm particularly concerned about the Chartel one because this will make the third heavy dense project that has been approved on Chartel, which is a pretty significantly used street, now a corridor. I heard a presentation from the bike guy from the city that it's going to be restricted to 2 lanes, which is going to help some. But these are corners in a residential area where we're getting more and more children and a lot of traffic. We get as many sightseers through the Cottage District as we do residents traveling around. And when we create those blind corners with 0 setbacks, it really challenges your ability to navigate some of these corners. I live on the block where the one at Lee and 7th Street is. With the elevation of that block, it's a challenge now to see what's coming north on Lee when you're exiting off of 7th Street. So we ask you on behalf of the association, let's get these things uniform and a level playing field, and this will help alleviate. We've already gone from a 35-foot height back in the day up to a 50-foot building height. So this expansion of volume and square footage footprint are really challenging to the essence of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Go ahead. Again, state your name,
Hello.
address, and if you could sign in to...
Okay.
Great.
My name is Sean Cobb. My address is 819 Northwest 7th. So I'm actually one of the further setbacks, the 32 feet. So it was your number 2. So my house is the third one there. The one next to us is for sale. And so if this is a 10-foot setback, that's going to greatly impact our 3 homes that are already there. So my thought is, just because it's only going to affect a few people isn't a good enough reason to not change it. I think by changing it, you're more likely to have single-family homes built on those lots. But if you don't change it, I have the risk, and we all do, of that being commercially developed, which is, that would be horrible for me. That's all.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Steve Mason, and I live at 824 Northwest 8th. I built a house 3 years ago, and it made sense to me when I built my home to honor the setbacks of my neighbors. It looks right to me, and I guess I would request that this really gets down to the apartments, that they honor the other residences around them. Of course, I would defer to you all that have a little more aesthetic and architectural ability than me. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Linda Mioli, and I live at 607 Northwest 7th. The only other comment I want to make is that Lisa was inferring that there's not that much property left in the Cottage District in order for these setbacks to apply. If you go to 7th and Lee, you've got 2 lots there, or 3 lots there, the 3 lots you were... The lot next to it, which had a house approved, is now for sale. So that is a prime piece of property for multifamily houses. The property on Chartel that was approved north of the Hall House, that was approved by the Board of Adjustment over your objections, is now for sale. So they were putting a multifamily project on that piece of property. That's now for sale, so that's opened up for someone else to come in and put in multifamily property up there. The other big piece of property that Lisa was talking about on 10th, that she said just had the, not 10th, I'm sorry, 8th, that they just got an application for, that as well can be changed. I mean, it's very nice that they say that they're going to abide by the setbacks on that block, but that could be changed at any time. It hasn't even come before the Board of Adjustment. And there are also other properties that aren't vacant properties, but have old houses on them, just like the one next to the Cobbs, that someone may buy and try and demolish for a bigger piece of property, so that there is a likelihood that there are a number of properties there in our district that multifamily houses and single-family houses can be built. So I just want you to, this is important to us. It's not that it's just one or two instances. It could make a very big effect on our district. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, are there any comments from the commission in regards to what we've heard today?
I'm in support of the proposal that the neighborhood has put forward. I'll make a few comments about the proposal. I appreciate the staff's efforts to go through and document where things are and what the setbacks may be, and I agree with the comment from the audience that things are getting very speculative. Projects that we have approved, many of them now have not been built, and the land is now up for sale. So while the district may look like there's not much left, I think there's quite a bit going on, quite a bit of uncertainty in the district now. A comment was made that during the stakeholder process, which took several years that the planning staff worked on, there was not a move to change this, and I agree. But since that process concluded, I think I know we have seen more applicants coming to us trying to push us on the setback rule. Every month, it seems like, this year, there have been projects trying to put a lot of density on a small piece of land, not even what would typically hold a single-family house. They're trying to put, as much as they can cram on there. And we have been holding them to the setbacks as we should, because they are a regulation. But I just think that trend is going to continue, and I think the proposal that the neighbors have put forward is a very good one. When this issue comes up, staff talks frequently about consistency, that the purpose of the setbacks are to have some consistency across the block, that you don't have one project jutting out very far towards the street and another one set back, and that across blocks you get some consistency. And I completely agree with that. And I think the proposal would go toward giving us more consistency. It was also pointed out that there is some language in the DDF talking about where projects should be cited in relation to the street. The DDF is very helpful and useful, but it is just a resource. It is not a regulation. It's my understanding that the current setback rules are regulation, and we don't really have many certainties in the cottage district, and I think that's given those of us that live here and those of us that want to develop here some unease at the way things are going. So I think the more things that we can have that are regulations that you can rely on, that we will apply consistently across projects, the better. So for those reasons, I support the proposal put forth by the Neighborhood Association.
Thank you, Lee. Any other comments from the commission? So we need to give a recommendation to the Planning Commission. Lee, are you prepared to put your comments into a motion?
Sure, let me attempt that. Let me just, before I formally make it, my motion would be to propose that the Planning Commission adopt the ordinance as proposed with the language amended to include the language proposed by the Sosa Neighborhood Association.
Can we reference their document, or do we need to actually spell it out?
I would go ahead and just read that into the record. It's
Okay, yeah,
the change that you wanted.
okay.
It's not long.
Yep. So I would propose, I would move that we recommend adoption to the Planning Commission of the ordinance language with the following change. Section 59-7200.3C2, setbacks within the area known as the Cottage District for new construction. The front yard setback or front and side yard setbacks for corner lots shall be within the range of existing building setbacks on the same side of the same block. 2, where less than 2 structures are located on that same side of the street on the same block, the front yard setback or the front and side yard setbacks for corner lots shall be a maximum of 20 feet from the street frontage property line.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Ben. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great. Administrative approval report. Lisa, floor is yours for the administrative approval report.
I'm sorry?
Administrative approval report.
I
Is that
think
you
there
or
was only
Michael?
one. Yeah,
These are changes that were administratively approved a few weeks back with regard to the Maples Barbecue Restaurant at the southeast corner of Indiana and Northwest 16th Street in the Plaza District. They've retooled their design and eliminated the addition and made some other changes that include the incorporation of a new trash enclosure in the alley, so, or former alley, excuse me.
Any questions for Michael? Great. Any additional comments from the planning department staff? Any comments from the commission members?
If Mr. Mason still wants to do it, I wouldn't mind hearing an update on Yale.
Yep. Please, any comments from the audience? Come on up.
Hi, I'm Steve Mason. I'm the owner of the Yale. Byron's the architect. We're going to be open in February, and we're rocking along, and this theater will be as important as the tower is on 23rd and the theater in the Plaza District, just how it helps things get going. And I'm here to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Mason? Great, thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Our next regular commission meeting is Wednesday, October 24th, 2018. New applications were to be submitted to staff by 4 p.m. this past Tuesday, September 25th, 2018. Revisions and information on continued projects are to be submitted by October 2nd, 2018. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Let the battle begin. Yeah.
Yeah, and there is language that says that the ordinance text will prevail.